going to wait a few minutes to let people who want to sign on, sign on. And I hope that you all are having a great Wednesday so far. I'm Dr. Maisha. For those of you who don't know, I'm the admin. I'm also Stress-Free Mom MD and the admin of this group, Next Level Physicians, the founder of the Next Level Physician Entrepreneurs Institute. And what I do is I help doctors, particularly moms in medicine or women in medicine, create their ideal careers so they can live life their design. And I do that through various coaching programs, group and one-on-one, and online courses. Have a lot of tools and techniques, marketing resources that help moms in medicine start and grow their businesses profitably. So I have this group created to be able to be a resource for you all. And I wanted to begin to really get back into actively doing these lives. And so one of the questions I asked earlier this week was, what is it that gets you stuck about entrepreneurship? What does it get you? And one person, maybe it was a couple of people who said that it was just knowing how to get started. Like, what is it that you have to do to get started? And a lot of times getting started in business it really is the hardest part. And so I wanted to just provide a few pearls today to kind of give you the pathway, the powerful pathway to getting started, and what it is that actually gets people stuck so you can begin to move that out of the way and move forward. So the first thing I want to talk about is that we often get attached to the how, but one of the first and most important things about starting a business is knowing the what. And a lot of times, one of the places where people get the most stuck is being clear about what you're actually doing. And so if you have had an inkling that you want to start a business, and or you've had some ideas about starting a business, but where you stopped is how, consider first that what's unclear is the actual what. Because when you get very, very clear on the what, then the how actually becomes, it starts to formulate and starts to get a little bit more clear. So then when you are, as you're looking at, okay, I'm interested, I want to start a business, what exactly is what is it that you actually love? What is it that you actually want to do? What is the problem that you want to solve? All right. So if you start with what's the problem, you can start in two places. You can either start with what is the problem that you want to solve? Like, what is the problem that you see to solve that you feel passionate about? And that's a good place to start. And then the second place to come from is, what is it that you love? That you love inside of your expertise, whether it's inside of medicine or outside of medicine. What is it you love inside of that expertise that you would be passionate about doing as a business? So when you come from those two places, what is it that you love? And then what is the problem that you're passionate about solving? Then you've got at least a place to stand. All right. So you're looking at what's the problem you solve. Now you begin to look at, okay, there's a problem that you want to solve. What are the ways that problem could be solved? What are the things that are already out there that are moving towards solving that problem? And a lot of times we feel like we have to have this incredibly novel idea. Now, some of the ideas that we come up with are novel, but the belief that if someone else is doing something similar, then your idea is not valid is just untrue. So you want to start to get at the fact that, there may be other people who have similar ideas, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel. But what was going to distinguish you in the problem that you solve is where the gold is. So what is the problem you want to solve? Are there people already taking steps to solve that problem in the small business or corporate realm? And what distinguishes you from anyone else who's going to solve that problem? And then what are the gaps in that problem that's being solved as well? That's called finding your niche or creating your niche. So then getting clear, so that's all part of really getting clear about the what. What is it that you're going to do? Now, when you start to then look at what are the steps to take, then you want to begin to think about, well, what does this solution that you're proposing, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? What you want to do, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? What would be the ideal business job description, I would say? Or the ideal, if you were to say, what is the ideal job description, but inside of you having a business, what would logistically be workable for you? And that's important to think about as well, because if you don't start to visualize the logistics of how your business will look and like the delivery of whatever it is of the problem that you're going to solve, the solution, the delivery of the solution, whether it's a book, whether it's a course, whether it's a clinic or a service, whether it's a physical product, you want to start to look at the components of what that would look like for you ideally. And that's pulling together the vision. Like all of this is inside of the what, by the way, right? Because we get caught up in the how before we're super crystal clear about the what. And sometimes we have so many ideas about the what that it confuses us about which pathway to start. So I'll talk to you about, when I was starting my private practice back when I was practicing integrative medicine, I had this huge idea for this wellness center. I mean, I really wanted to go all out and have acupuncturists and coaches and meditation center and yoga instructors. And I wanted to have like the whole bit. And there's so many components to that to try to do all of that at one time and manage that all at one time would have been overwhelming, would have taken quite a bit of time for me to formulate and quite a bit of money to formulate, quite frankly. But the way that I approached it that actually ended up working very well is to look at what is the thing that I can start now. A lot of times we think we have to have it all perfect and all nicely in a bow in a box in order to get started. What is the thing that I can start now? So what I was able to do is as I was getting started, is to align myself with an existing wellness center and to begin to provide services inside of that, my own services as an independent contractor inside of that wellness center. And I started with a couple of services. I trained in acupuncture and trained in what we now call functional medicine, nutritional food as medicine, food as medicine or functional nutrition is what I want to say. Integrative nutrition, and began to coach patients on that. I then trained in coaching, so then I expanded my tool belt. And over the years, I built and expanded in a stepwise fashion. So if you say, okay, well, I have this huge business idea, and I have all of these things, the big vision is you start to look at what does the business look like for you ideally? What is the big picture vision? Then you start to look at all of these various arms and what is it that you can attack first? What can you approach first? Okay. Now, the other piece of that is if you're a visual person like I am, sometimes you need to put that on paper. And one of the techniques that I really love to do whenever I'm thinking of any type of new income stream or business idea, or even if I'm looking at putting a new course together inside of my, the burnout coaching that I do, or inside of the business and entrepreneurship coach, I might be thinking about a new offering. Like, for example, I just put together a new sales training for medical professionals, because of course, we don't really know. I wouldn't say we don't know, but we weren't taught sales. That does not mean we don't know how to sell. It's just the context in which we've been taught selling is completely off and different for most people in medicine. And so I just developed this course. And as I am developing this course, I have to have a big picture view of what it would ideally look like. And so I mind map that. So whether it's you're already in business and you're trying to get a big picture view, or you have a bunch of ideas for a big picture business and you want to know which pathway to take first, you might consider mind mapping. And there are a couple of great softwares that do it. If you're a pen to paper person, it's easy. Just, get a paper out, put a circle in the middle, and then draw your different arms out so that you kind of get a feel for which directions you could go. And then you basically decide what's the best direction to go, what I like to call the lowest hanging fruit, or the path that you're most passionate about. So it'd be the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest path to take, or the path that you're most passionate about. All right. So for me, when I started my integrative medicine practice before I transitioned in my former life there, I had this big idea of all of these things I wanted to learn. And the lowest hanging fruit for me was acupuncture. That was what I was most passionate about. So I went and I trained in acupuncture, and that's what I started with. And then the next thing I got passionate about was functional nutrition, and I trained in that. And then the next thing I got passionate about was coaching, because I was already doing it, so I may as well get trained in that. So it's like you take it in a stepwise fashion rather than think you have to eat the whole elephant at once. So that's all of this is part of, the what. We got to get clear about the what before we start to do the how. Now I'm going to get a little bit into the how today, but I really want to I'm going to reinforce this and drum this all day long, because the what is not always the sexy part. The what is not always the fun part. The what is the hard part. And once you get clear about the what, though, then connecting to the right resources, the right mentors, the right coaches, the right programs, the how can be laid out for you and makes it easier. And when you're clear about the what, the how goes a lot faster than you might realize. In my Employee to Entrepreneur group program, I have a group of docs or medical professionals. They're not all physicians. They're pharmacists and here's and that. And these docs have been in the program for less than 6 months, most of them, and a lot of them are already. One doc has already signed a lease on a new building, and she's about to launch in June. And then there's another doc who's already, she's moving forward with clients, and but that's because they got really clear on the what, right? So when you get clear on the what, the how actually comes with a lot more velocity. So as I'm talking about, the what, I'm trying to think if there's anything more I have to say about that. You have an idea. You may have an idea that has multiple components. You mind map that idea. You look at what is the path that you're most passionate about, or what's the lowest hanging fruit, meaning the easiest thing to get started on, especially given if you're already still working full time or even working part time, and you might be a mom or a dad. You might have kid responsibilities and other hats that you wear. What's most workable to get started on now, and what's the path you're most passionate about if you have a big picture business that has multiple sort of arms to it. All right. Then, so you get clear about the what, and then the next thing is, getting started. And a lot of times we have this view that in order to launch, everything has to be all the way perfect. But that really is just not true. Now, it would be interesting to know some of the people who ask the question of how to get started, what the actual business is, because how to get started depends on what you are moving towards. Sometimes the how to get started is as simple, once you get clear about the what, is looking at what's the business structure that you want to set up. Begin to go ahead and set that up with integrity. getting the right team on place. Maybe you need a CPA, maybe you need an attorney, maybe you need a virtual assistant, because that's the other thing, that sometimes we all try to do it all by ourselves when we can have a team member in place that is a low-cost team member. Virtual assistants do not cost that much money because they're only getting paid for the work that they're actually putting in. So you may have a project-based virtual assistant that can help you with some of the things that you want to do. For example, I have a virtual assistant that helps me with my blog posting. I write the content and she posts the blogs and she posts it on my social media. All right, so that's sort of like the blog and social media management, right? And it doesn't cost that much for that to do once you start to put yourself out there. There are other hacks that you can actually do if you're not a person who likes to write, but you want to start a blog. You might have the ideas and the outline and the topics, and consider hiring a ghostwriter. That people do that, and as long as they have an idea of your voice and what you want to accomplish inside of the writing, they can do a pretty good job. And again, there's a cost to that. But at the same time, if you're trying to put yourself out there, if you've already started the business or you're just getting started and you're wanting to go ahead and put yourself out there, it's a good way to begin to take the load off of yourself. All right. So now you're setting up your business structure. You have your dream team in place, and you're very clear about what you're doing. And then what there is to do is to begin to look at, well, what is the delivery of your solution, and what things do you need to put in place to be able to appropriately deliver that solution, to be able to effectively deliver that solution. If you're putting together a course, what is the equipment that you need in place? If you're writing a book, what is the process and what is the time that you need to put aside in order to start and complete this book. And if you have a problem with keeping yourself accountable, that is where a coach or a mastermind comes into play. I think that's probably one of the most challenging things, is keeping ourselves accountable for that thing that we say that we want and letting life get in the way. When we have accountability partners, when we have mentors or coaches, then we know we have to answer to someone, then we're more likely to either create the structure or have a coach help you create the structure so that you can effectively accomplish what you want. Sometimes because we're the fish in water, it seems like it's impossible to create that structure. But you'd be surprised at all of the little places that you can steal time in order to make these things happen, in order to move forward your goal toward the business. And it just takes 15 to 20, maybe 30 minutes a day of work specifically towards that business to actually have it manifest in real time at a pretty rapid pace. Okay, so you've got the what, and it's you start to look at the logistics of what you need to put in place to have that. What is a budget? What is a budget that you might anticipate in the spending? And I'll tell you, if you're in the infopreneur business, meaning if your business is virtual, at all, is telemedicine, whether it's online course, whether it's coaching, then your startup cost and your overhead will be very, very low. And so that is one positive thing about the infopreneur and the virtualpreneur business model, is that it keeps the overhead low. If you're looking to do something more brick and mortar, that's just fine. Then you look at what are some ways to be able to keep your overhead manageable, and what is the budget that you need? How much money do you need to make each month to be able to make that real? And of course, it has to be said here, I don't it seems obvious to me, but I've talked to enough physicians and doctors to know that it's not obvious to everyone, is that we have the context that when we start a business, we have to quit everything else to start that business. And that's just not the case. When I started my integrative medicine practice, I worked locums tenens part-time. I'm a family doctor by training. I worked locums part-time as I built up my clinic to be able to go full-time. Now, as I transitioned full-time coaching, I did something very similar. I had my private practice. I declared my start date, which is another thing that we need to be willing to do, is declare our launch date. Because when you declare our launch date and you not only declare it to yourself, but you declare it to others, like your people around you, your mentor coach, whoever that might be, then you are held to the wire of getting stuff done. And it's motivating when you do that. I digress. When I declared that I was going to transition from private practice primarily into coaching, which now I sold my practice and that this is my main gig, I set that date, and then I set whatever the schedule I needed to do to work towards that little by little so that I could achieve that deadline. So, and I stayed in my practice. So I straddled two jobs or businesses for a 9 or 10 months before I felt comfortable enough, having replaced my income, to be able to transition full time into this company, this new company, relatively new company that I built. So just to reinforce that when you start a side gig, when you start a new business, I call it a side gig because it starts as a side gig, really. When you start a business and you're intending for this to become your main gig eventually, it really is okay to continue to work where you're working. Now, if you're in a toxic environment, if you're in and I think I've said this before in previous lives, but if you're in a toxic environment, or if you feel like there's no space to breathe, there's no space to workably build a business, while you're in the current position, you might consider a bridge job. But there's no reason to quit your current job for a bridge job if you feel like you can create workability in building a business, while you're still in your current position. Now, one thing that I will say as well, I have to say this because Dr. Bonnie Simpson Mason's voice is now echoing in my head, is that if you're employed and you're going to start a business, you need to make sure you check your contract to make sure that there are no clauses, no intellectual property provisions there. And if you have any questions about that, you can check with an attorney, but you can also call Dr. Bonnie Simpson Mason, and she's in the group here, and I'm giving her a shout out. And so I'll put her name, I'll tag her in this post. So if in fact you need to reach her and you're thinking about making that transition, that you can reach out to her. She's like my go-to for all things contracts. So, so then that covers really the getting unstuck piece. The last thing I really want to say, which is usually the first thing I say, but surprisingly it's the last thing that I'm saying today, is that sometimes the starting or the getting unstuck in starting your business is as simple as shifting your mindset point of view. People overlook this mindset piece. There's always going to be the fear of the unknown, or the fear of failure, or the fear of, whatever the fear is, right? Fear is false evidence appearing real. And, when you're committed to something, you get committed to honoring that commitment rather than honoring the fear, right? If you're really committed and passionate to something that's bigger than what you're doing now, if you're unfulfilled and the only thing that's stopping you is fear, then really get present to the commitment over the fear. All right. We have been trained as doctors, as medical professionals. We have been trained to know what's coming, because guess what? We've always known what's coming. We of course, we knew in undergrad what we had to do to get in med school. And then in med school, we knew everything that we needed to do to pass our test, to get to the next year, to pass our boards, and to apply and get into residency. And in residency, there are protocols and pathways and things in place so that we always know what's next. And so, given that that's been our training, we've always known what's next. It is scary to step outside of that mold of not knowing and creating as you go. And I'll tell you, the people who are in my course right now, the docs who are currently creating inside the course, that's a conversation we frequently have, is that it is scary because it makes you feel like you're out in the wind. But the other side of that scary is it's enlivening. When you're creating and you don't know, and the world is out there to create, it's everything that you have that's out there to create, it actually gives you this feeling of aliveness and excitement, because what you're creating is yours, and it's the difference you're going to make out there. It's your difference, it's your creation, it's your baby, and it's something that you can be proud of accomplishing. And then so that leads me to this other fear of failure. Well, what if it doesn't work? Well, so what if it doesn't work? You're not going to die. If it doesn't work, you tweak and adjust until you can either you pivot to something that works, that you're even more passionate about, or you put in what needs to put in to have it work. When I started my very, very first practice, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed out of residency, I had no idea what I was doing, admittedly, like hindsight's 2020. And that business closed in a matter of, I think, 6 months. And, of course, it was a little bit of a blow to the ego, because had I really failed before? Well, I mean, I'd had some brushes with failure in undergrad, but never like having to close a business. But what I did was I took that like, okay, I got it, but this is still my dream. This is still my commitment to really empower people in their well-being in an integrative way. So what is it that I need to then learn and put in the next time so that doesn't happen? And so you use failure as your internal GPS. And a lot of you who know me, who have seen my webinars, who coach with me, who have had discovery calls with me, who have seen my lives before, who have read my articles, this is a principle that I always talk about, is using failure as the internal GPS, or the world's GPS, to know where you need to tweak and adjust. One of my marketing mentors said that when you're in business, it is all about test and adjust, test and adjust. That's business, that's marketing. And so as you are moving forward, you can expect that you're going to have to test and adjust. But one of the reasons to be inside of a mastermind, be inside of a course or a program, or like a coaching program, is so that you're not doing this in a vacuum. You have other people around you, whether it be peers or the coach mentor, the facilitator, who can give you that feedback. And that's one of the wonderful things I love about our group, is that it gives you that, it gives the students in the course that immediate feedback, not just from me, but from all of the group, different perspectives that have you really get clearer faster about what there is that's working, what there is that's not working, whether you're on the right path or whether you need to pivot. And if you start out on one path, there's nothing wrong with pivoting. I pivoted a couple of times in this particular second career until I've hit this sweet spot of business and entrepreneurship coaching. So I just wanted to empower you all today that, getting unstuck really is as simple as, number one, making sure your mindset is right, like really the mindset around taking action and eliminating or sidestepping your fear, stepping over or sidestepping the fear of anything, and recognizing that there really is no failure, there's only feedback. And fear is really just false evidence appearing real. It's like the fear of what hasn't happened yet. It's not even real, right? And then there is, and even if there is fear of something that happened, like if you failed at something in the past, it really is just the attachment to that not having succeeded in the past. It's just the attachment to what happened and then what you made that mean about yourself. It's not, there's again, no real failure. There's just what happened and then what you tweak and adjust, right? And I know that in our profession, failure in some ways is life or death, but in business, it's not so, all right? Not unless you make it so. So, and so it's, really shifting, being courageous. I want to say shifting the mindset because that's really cliche. It's really being courageous enough to sidestep or step around your fears and recontextualize failure. The second thing is to be very, 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 very clear about the what. And I talked about all of those things about being clear about the what. And sometimes you can get clear on your own, and sometimes you need other people to help you to get clear. And that's okay if you need other people to help you get clear. Sometimes it's even better to have other people there to help you get clear. People who have done this before, people who are trained to listen in a particular way, not to give you advice, but to be a sounding board and give you different perspectives and empower your process, right? So getting very clear about the what before you start to do the how, and then creating your big picture strategy through mind mapping so that you then can approach with the lowest hanging fruit. What's the easiest way to get started? All right. So those are sort of the three pearls that I want to leave you with today, and I hope that's been helpful. If you have any questions, about this process, go ahead and drop comments in the comment section. I'll be monitoring the comments, so I'll be able to answer questions. And if you are feeling like, okay, I am ready to take that jump, but I do need some support, then you can reach out to me right here on Facebook. You can message me, or I will drop a link to the programs that I offer in the comments there, so you can take a look and decide if that is right for you. And you can always reach out to me for a discovery call as well. I do complimentary discovery calls, and what that does is that helps you to get clearer about the what, and then you have an opportunity to choose whether or not you need that support from me ongoing, and what programs I offer that can provide you with that support. Oh, everybody's joining at the end. So I hope that you've enjoyed and that you've gotten some value out of the live today. And for those of you who are watching the replay, remember to go ahead and drop the comments in the comment section, because I will continue to watch the comments, and I will put a couple of resources also in the comments for you all to check out, so that you can begin to get yourself unstuck. All right, you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you on the next live. Take care.